fellow athletes and fans of bodybuilding. My name is Terrick Guindy with the Mr. Olympia. Today we have some iconic guests. We have a Hall of Famer, Ironman champion, Arnold Classic champion, 1994 Mr. Olympia runner-up. He's also a national champion, Shawn Ray. Shawn, how are you?
I'm good, brother. Good. Just gearing up for that Mr. Olympia. I'm excited.
And in the center, 8-time Mr. Olympia, also a national champion, the first national champion, Lee Haney. Totally awesome. Lee, how are you?
I am doing great. Doing great, just like Shawn, gearing up for the Mr. Olympia.
Okay, so Brendan Curry got in, but I think he's fixing the internet, so he should be back in. I'm going to start with this. We've had some guys winning pro bodybuilding shows in the last couple weeks. One of them, his name is Blessing Awodibu. I think if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, he was born in Nigeria. Correct. He immigrated to Ireland, and now he lives in Florida. This young man is very popular on social media, and he goes by the name of Boogeyman. And these are his pictures, okay? And I want you guys to break it down to me. I'll start with you, Shawn. Break it down to me. Is this guy for real? Is this guy top 10? Is this guy top 5? Is he going to fall off when we get to the Olympia? What do you think of this guy?
Yeah, I mean, I think Lee will tell you, you're only as good as the guy you're standing next to. Blessing competed in a competition back-to-back, Indiana and New York. That lineup was not what it was a year ago when he was up against Big Nick Walker, who actually won those competitions, or at least the New York Pro Show. Blessing did come up. He made some improvements. He's got a long way to go with the hamstrings and the calves and a little bit more thigh separation. He's a little slight in the lower back. But for Blessing's credit, he looks a lot better than he did a year ago. He just still has a ways to go. You can see it in the triceps. You can see it in the thighs. I'm a little bit more critical because I'm thinking of the guys he's trying to play catch up to. But for him as an individual, he's done what it takes to win. Not only did he qualify once, but he qualified twice. But these are not Olympia lineups that he's qualifying in. And he still cannot take his foot off the gas. He's got a long way to go.
Okay, Lee Haney, 8-time Mr. Olympia. Is this guy ready to make an impact, or is going to take a few years?
Well, I think just as Shawn said, he does have a way to go, but I love his overall package. I can see the symmetry there. I see balance. As Shawn was saying, though, he still need to bring up his calves, in the thighs and so forth. So as he continue to get there, I do see him as a big threat. But I love his package,
Well, Shawn, what are we talking about? We're talking about what? He's going to be out of the top 10? He's not going to place? What are we talking about here? Where do you see this guy falling?
I don't know that he's out of the top 10. I think if he makes it in the top 10, that's a humongous jump from a year ago. Remind yourself, I wasn't in the top 10 in my first Olympia. A lot of guys don't make the top 10. I mean, there's a few exceptions, Lee Haney, and a few other guys that go straight to the top, Phil Heath, Haney, Labrada. You're talking about Hall of Fame bodybuilders. Blessing's not a Hall of Fame bodybuilder. I think the main accomplishment for him is that he qualified. Now, if he can make it in the top 10 for him, that's a huge achievement for him in the little amount of time that he's been here and where he started. I see him fighting to make the top 10. The top 6, I think, is already a done data. That's done. He's not in the top 6. But if he makes it in the top 10 for him, that's a huge step in the right direction to set himself up nicely for 2023.
Let's welcome here Mr. Olympia, Brendan Curry. Brendan, how are you?
Let me unmute myself. I'm doing all right. Just got back from Kentucky. So I had to come here and try to set up in the wrong area. Bad Wi-Fi, so I had to change my area. So I'm running like a dad with his head cut off right now. So I'm glad I made it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Brendan, we're talking about some of the new guys that have won pro bodybuilding shows, right? It looks like at the Mr. Olympia in the last couple of years, we've had the same guys. It's you, Big Ramy, William Bonek, Hadi Chopin. You guys are there in that top 5, top 4. And then there's a bunch of new guys, right? Bunch of new guys that they're a little bit behind in terms of placing. Lee Labrada, Hunter Labrada.
Yeah.
Hunter Labrada, you have Nick Walker, you have Ian Valier. These guys are maybe the young generation. And then there's this guy joining in. And my question to Shawn Ray and Lee Haney is the same. I'm going to make it for you. How good is this guy? Can this guy make an impact at the Olympia right now, or you think he's going to take some time? Blessing Awodibu.
Blessing, I think his trial run, or getting his feet wet, so to speak, was last year, his last season. You know, he came out with some big hype, a lot of talk. He didn't do as well as he wanted to do, but he was able to take that, learn from it, make some adjustments this year, and get a good coaching connection with George Ferris. So I think with the progress he's making, I know he's coming in to challenge Nick in particular, as he said. I think he'll be one of those guys to kind of make a breakthrough. I believe he actually can. He definitely has done his homework, and he's definitely shown improvement.
Now, Shawn, it's not taking as long as it did in the past to really move up, right? I mean, you look at Hunter Labrada, you look at Nick Walker, they both were in the top 5 this past year, right? It's not like we're not talking about the 90s where, you know, you're Ronnie Coleman, you know, 1997 and you're placed 9th. Right now, some of these guys are placing a little bit faster. Do you see this guy making a move or not really?
Well, I mean, things have to align properly. For Hunter Labrada, things lined up nicely. 1, he improved dramatically. 2, Phil Heath was not in the lineup. Dexter Jackson retired, so he automatically moved up a couple of spots just by those guys not being in the lineup. In this scenario, we're going to have some more guys qualify going into the Mr. Olympia. It's not going to be unreasonable to think that Blessing could break into the top 10. Break into the top 6, I'm not sold on that one because of the things I see that he needs to work on and the guys that are already there. But if he makes the top 10, again, that's progress.
If you were to tell them, hey, this is what you need to place better at the 2022 Mr. Olympia, and this is a question for Lee Haney and Brandon Curry, what would be your advice to him right now?
Well, what I would say is, you know, he's on the track to being successful. I like the way that his body is maturing as far as muscle separation, because that's a biggie, you know, particularly those that came in my era. So that is happening very good for him. And as Shawn was saying, he got a great coach now, somebody who's been there and done that. So I just say good, solid, slow improvement. I don't think he needs to try to rush his physique, because when that happens, you end up turning into you get a bit blocky. You don't take care of overall balance. So I like the way he look. And again, I like his lines, but if he's going to do it right, it's going to take time, as Shawn was saying. You can't rush a beautiful physique if that's what he's trying to create.
Yeah. Brandon, in 2008, you were wearing red trunks at the NPC USA's. You were the favorite, and you won that show. And the hype was so big that people thought you were going to win the Mr. Olympia in a year or so. And as you know, history proved to be different. You won the Mr. Olympia, but it just took a long time. Do you think that now we're living a different era, that guys can get there a little bit early? Or you think Blessing might be facing what you faced? Hey, there's hype when you come into the scene, and then, you know, the pains, you know, you go to an Olympia and you just don't get that result that you're expecting. What do you think? You're on mute, so we need to unmute you.
Sorry. That's always a possibility, of course, that, you know, may take them a little longer. But I think in this particular time frame, we got a lot of new guys coming on the scene that are very competitive with one another. And we got, you know, some of the older guys that have left, and it's kind of like a transitional period. So I think with these circumstances, you got an opportunity for a lot of these young guys who are already competing each other, battling for who's going to be the best of new crop, going to be able to come up and be very, very competitive quickly once the guard changes, so to speak. So I don't think it would take quite as long as me, but it may take them a little time to get there. But in these circumstances, are a little bit different than circumstances when I was coming up. We had a lot of established guys already fighting for the title. Dexter was still in the running, beating everybody. So it's a little bit different than it was then than it is now, as far as the look of the industry and the ages of the guys coming in and competing.
Shawn, what do you think about this guy, California State Champion Charles Griffen? What do you think of his physique? What are the possibilities of him making a move at the Olympia?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it was the California, and he beat a guy that just won the Toronto show,
Mohamed Shaaban.
Mohamed Shaaban. So when you look at who you're standing next to and who you beat, you got to wonder. I mean, Mohamed Shaaban is a good, thick bodybuilder. Next to Charles, Charles kind of exposed him. He's able to pull out the vacuum. He appeared a little bit drier. His skin color was a little bit nicer. That was a close contest between those guys at the Cal, in my opinion. But I think if you put this guy next to Blessing, you have a really nice, tight battle. But if you put this guy next to Hadi Chupin, you put this guy up there next to Nick Walker, and you put them up against Hunter Labrada, you really see how far he has to go in the overall grand scheme of things. I think this is a guy that's a good matchup for Blessing based on his condition. But again, we're talking about competition that just took place in May/June. There's another almost 5 or 6 months to go before the Olympia rolls around, and not everyone can peak twice in a year. So he looked great at the California lineup, but the guy that he beat, Mohamed, again, I don't know that I got Mohamed way up on the list in terms of Olympians. So I think that's going to be one of those battles that's going to take place in the bottom half of the Olympia, not necessarily in the top half.
Lee, what do you think of Charles Griffen's physique? He's actually also a national champion. He really corrected his midsection and made his physique a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. There's a demand for that. What do you think of this guy's physique, Lee?
Well, from what I see, he got very good balance, good symmetry. I love his shoulder, waist taper, thighs look good. I think he has an incredible package here, but as Shawn was saying, he needs to get a bit thicker. And when you see him standing there by himself, that's one thing. But then when you put him beside some of the guys that's larger, that's been on the stage a little longer, that really tells the truth of what he's capable of at this point in his career. So, but what I see, if he continues to move in the direction that he is now, he's going to be very, very good. Very good.
Mm-hmm. Brandon, you know Charles very well. Charles actually mentioned you during his after the show. You know Charles very well. He's a very passionate guy. He wants to win bodybuilding shows. And he says, I'm going to beat Blessing. I'm going to beat Blessing. There was a famous interview at the Olympia YouTube channel. He said, I did not lose to Blessing in Indy, and I'm going to beat Blessing. How do you like this guy? Do you like Charles? Do you think Charles has a chance to beat Blessing, be in the top 10?
Well, I think it's a very good rivalry, those two, as shown in the shows in particular. I like the improvements that Charles has made. I really respect him for the amount of work he put in, the time he's taken off just to improve his physique. So a lot of guys take time off and they come back looking somewhat the same. This guy's definitely took his time off and done his homework, and it's definitely showed with this win on stage this year. A lot of improvements, a lot of improvements in the detail. I see the legs up. I see the waist is better, more controlled. So he's got a great package. But like we're saying about the comparisons, that's what's going to matter. How does his new physique compare against some of these established guys? That's what everybody really wants to find out and see. We've seen him against Blessing. We know what that comparison is. So we'll kind of see where they fall come the Olympia. And another question is, can he peak twice? Because he looked like he did really peak very well here.
Yeah. Oh, Shawn, I'm going to go back to some of these 212 guys making a move into the open, right? We're talking about, density. These guys need to get a little thicker. When we talk about some of those guys they need to get bigger to compete, a guy like Hadi Chupin, he's not the tallest guy. He's not the biggest guy, but he has tremendous density, right? What do you think about these 212 guys making a move into the open and being successful? We're talking about Hadi Chupin, William Bonac, and possibly Derek Lunsford. What is happening here?
Derek Lunsford could step in, and nobody's even going to think about 212. Derek's ready for the prime time. I mean, he shouldn't put himself in a category. He's one of the best bodybuilders on the planet. When I saw him guest post for Jim Manning, it really opened my eyes at 5'6", 252 guest posing. I thought, what would this guy look like at 230? What do you look at 225? Forget about 212. I think he loses a lot. I think James Flex Lewis used to lose a lot when it was coming down to 212. If both of them kind of had naturally just came in at whatever body weight they felt comfortable and stopped trying to suck down to 212, they both could have been a whole lot more than what their potential is. I think that Derek Lunsford is a natural heavyweight or super heavyweight. I think he competes at 225. If William Bonac is competing in the open, there's no reason why Derek Lunsford shouldn't be in the open. 100%. Derek Lunsford in the open, he's battling for a top 4 spot. No question in my mind.
Okay, well, those are some bold. That's a very strong statement here.
All you have to do is see him in person. I saw him guest posing in May. But if he stays on that trajectory, he can work his way into the top 4. There's no question based on what's there.
Well, Lee, did you have a chance to watch the pictures of the Pittsburgh Pro guest posing? Derek Lunsford, he's the Mr. Olympia 212. He goes in there and everybody gets impressed by his size, and he's a 212 guy. A lot of people made reference the fact that Hadi Choopan was a 212, William Bonac is a 212, and all these guys are making moves. Do you think Derek can make an impact as strong as Shawn believes?
Yes, I feel the same way Shawn do. There's no need for him to lose all of that muscle size. I mean, he's worked his tail off, and he have the density, he have the overall muscle maturity. Listen, he need to take it to the next level. You don't need to put himself in the small box, as Shawn was saying. Get him there and do his thing, and I think he's going to be incredible.
Oh, Brandon, you were there. You were there next to him on stage. Were you impressed, or you're just going to kick this guy's butt once he goes to the Open?
A and B. But I was impressed. Definitely was impressed. I know he's done his homework. He looks like he's a lot more mentally stable this season. And it looks like his offseason is going great. But just looking at the history, I've seen Derek, come into shows looking great 3-4 weeks out, looking big as a house, thinking he's going to take it. And something happens in those final weeks to where he loses his chest, he loses leg size, and things start to disappear, and he goes from looking 3D to 2-dimensional. So, Haney's had one prep with him. He's going to have this next prep with him. So hopefully they figured something out to where they're correcting this. I don't think it was just a matter of just making weight. I think it was just a matter of whatever they were doing at the final phase and how his body reacts at that final stage. So if they figure that out,
I think it's making weight. I think it's making weight, Brandon, because it doesn't matter what he looks like. He has to. So
I think
you got to make that weight. You forget about what you look like in the mirror. You're sucking down.
But Shawn, I'm gonna agree here with Brandon. When he competed the first time as a 212, he placed second, and he was the favorite because he turned pro as a light heavy at the USA's. He went on to win the Tampa and wins his qualification. Everybody was talking about Derek Lunsford as winning the Olympia. And then he lost that Mr. Olympia to Kamal, right? If I'm not mistaken, he lost to Kamal. And then he fell into 4th. This is not the first time that we see shocking pictures of Derek, right? I remember he had other pictures that people looked at his clavicle bones and said, this guy is incredible. His issue has been the conditioning, has never been that he was getting too small, right? What do you really think is happening to him, Shawn? Do you really think that he was losing muscle coming down and that was messing with his conditioning as well?
100%. I think the same happened with James Flex Lewis. I would have loved to just see James go in open and just see what he get. I think Derek should do an open show before the Olympia. He's got nothing to lose. He's the reigning 212 champion. I'm sure there's a show somewhere before the Mr. Olympia. He should test the waters. I mean, I guarantee you the top Olympians are not going to jump in a show a month or two before the Olympia. But if I'm Derek Lunsford, I got nothing to lose by jumping in an open show as I'm dieting to the 212. If I win that open show, I do the Open Olympia. I mean, you don't have a whole lot of time You know, tomorrow's not promised to anybody. You can get hurt. All kind of things can happen. For me as a competitor, I would want to know what I look like in an open contest before I suck down to the 212 again. He's got more reward waiting for him in the open because I think he's as good as the open guys. Mm-hmm. He's already beat the 212 guys. Why go back to fight something you're supposed to win? You know, he's supposed to win that show. But I also feel the same way about Bumstead. We put Bumstead in the classic physique. I would love for him to just go in the open bodybuilding and stand next to the guys and let the judges decide whether or not he's big or too small. I mean, he's got one of the prettiest bodies on the planet. Stand up there with the guys that are getting the lion's share of the pay and see what you can do. You've already won the classic 3 times. You've already won the 212 1 time. I'm all about the open. I'm a 212 guy, and I wasn't afraid of any of them. I knew they were all bigger. I mean, picture me getting dressed and pumping up next to Lee Haney. I mean, it's daunting. And then there's Dorian, and then there's Ronnie. I was afraid of none of those guys, but I held my ground. I mean, it's no shame in losing to the best guy, but at least I was up against the best guy. So I would want to know if I'm Derek Lunsford, if I could stand next to Brandon Curry, if I could beat Big Ronnie, or if I'm Chris Bumstead, if I could win an open competition.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. His coach is one of the most mysterious people we have in the industry, Haney Rambod. He's very mysterious. He's not going to let anybody know what's happening until the day of the Olympia, but it's definitely something that a lot of people are talking about, and it should be an interesting conversation. If you look at William Bonac, if you look at Hadi Choopan, I don't think they regret going to the open, right? No. I mean, they're making more money.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Listen, there was a time, and Brandon will tell you, there was a time I told Brandon to go to 212. He wasn't faring very well.
He didn't like that. Let me tell you, he did not like that.
But this is early in his career, and he wasn't doing very well in the open, and he had a 212 physique. And I'm thinking, go get some confidence and beat these guys, and then come back up. Luckily, he stayed true to what he wanted to do. But I think that mentality was, look, I don't want to just be a 212 champion. I want to be Mr. Olympia. And that dream comes from within. I think if Derek Lunsford wants to be Mr. Olympia, he'll be in the open. If Chris Bumstead wants to be the best guy on the planet, he'll be in the open. And I couldn't let my coach tell me what my dream's going to be. My coach might have plans for me, but if my dream is to be Mr. Olympia, the way Brandon's was, I'm so glad he didn't listen to me, because he had all the tools and he believed the open is where he belonged. And Derek and Brandon almost stand eyeball to eyeball. So I don't understand. I just don't know where the reward would be in a 2-time 212 champion as opposed to breaking out in the top 4 of the Olympia. I think he has the potential to do it. I would love to see that matchup.
Well, let me tell you about some inside information. Bob Ciccarello wanted to be in this live, and I had to tell him, you can't be on the live because Brandon is on the live. And one of the agreements we have with Brandon is that you can never be on a live with him since that comment you made about him going to the 212. You know what I mean? Brandon is very adamant about that moment, right, Brandon?
Bob Chick said that?
Bob Chick said at a conference, at the Olympia conference, I've done many lives with Brandon Curry. And Brandon Curry said to me, one of the life-changing moments of my life was when Bob Ciccarello at the press conference said to me I should go on a 212. And he said, on my mind, I said, I'm going to be Mr. Olympia, and this guy is going to regret his words. And, you know, that turned out to be truth. Right, Brandon?
Brandon, is his mic on? We lost him.
We lost him. Anyways,
it was really early in his career, though.
Yeah. Well, now let's talk about this guy here. This guy won the Toronto Pro, Mohamed Shaaban. What do you think of this guy, Lee Haney? Do you like this guy?
Well, it looks good, man. And again, he's standing by himself. You know, I love his overall package, but what is he? I don't see anything that he's being compared, or anybody that he's been compared with. But I love what I see as far as his mandatories are concerned. I think his cash could be better, and that's a biggie for me. You know, during my era, everybody had to have cash, from Mr. Olympia on down, and that's something that I see lacking quite a bit with a lot of the guys in the pro division. But he's well on his way.
Shawn, you like Mohamed Shaaban? He placed 10th at the Olympia last year. And,
Yeah.
and you know, so, I mean, he's not a guy that didn't make to the top 10. He already made it to the top 10.
No, I mean, the last three guys.
I think we lost Shawn here. Brandon, can you hear us?
I can hear you, man. My connection was a bit rough.
Well, what do you think of Mohamed Shaaban? He placed 10th place at the Mr. Olympia. You know, he had a tough battle with Charles Griffen. He lost to Charles. What do you think of Mohamed Shaaban? Do you consider him one of the guys that can be a threat eventually?
I mean, he's been working hard. He's another one of those guys that came up from 212, which I think he originally started in 212 as well. He's put on a lot of muscle since then, and it's been more about him refining it, figuring out how to make all that muscle, you know, bring it in condition, bringing it nice and tight. So I think, you know, he competed a lot last year, and hopefully his body got a nice break. But he has potential. He's still very, very young. Very, very young, and he has the potential to make plenty of improvements. I think that his youth is in his favor. I just think he doesn't need to really rush it, you know, making sure he can, you know, come in these shows in peak condition and not really push the size.
Yes. We often talk about controlling the waist. It was something that benefited Charles Griffen and made him win the California State Show. Now, I have here two Mr. Olympias. Nothing against Shawn. I hope he comes back to the live here with us. But I have two Mr. Olympias here. And I did a live with Jay Cutler last week. And Jay Cutler said something which I thought it was very interesting. He said, I would have been a better bodybuilder, a better Mr. Olympia, if I had only focused on training and my body to go on that day. I compromised my body. I compromised some of my dieting and some of my rest because I knew it was important to represent the sport. And he goes, I went to Lonnie Teeper's show and I guest posed with Ronnie Coleman. I always did my Pittsburgh guest posing. I traveled because I knew that was important for my brand and for the representation of being Mr. Olympia. Today, Jay Cutler is retired and he makes very good, you know, money from his popularity as Mr. Olympia. Then we have another guy. He just didn't want to be a star. He never came to the United States. He wanted to isolate himself. He trained at Tempo Gym. And he clearly said, I'm not a star. I'm not a star. I'm just the best athlete. Lee, I'll start with you. You wanted to be a great representation. It wasn't enough for you just to win on stage. You wanted to conduct yourself in a way that people say, hey, that's Mr. Olympia, right? There's articles about you talking about not only going on stage and winning, but your conditioning. You are very eloquent, financially savvy. What was your choice when you had that title?
Well, I wanted to make sure I kept a balance. You know, I was, I guess, one of the first Mr. Olympias to compete, win, and also have a family at the same time, a young family. I had my son and my daughter while I was still competing. Plus, I had business interests that I was very much involved in, the TV show on ESPN, all of those things I did, along with the guest posing and appearances and so forth. So my hands were full, but I made sure that I wanted to make sure that I represented Mr. Olympia with the utmost of class, but at the same time, I was the father, I was the husband, I was everything that a real person or a real man needed to be, and to show that to the world. I feel that was one of my biggest contributions to being Mr. Olympia, being a real person and someone that the up and coming generation could say, you know, that was okay. Lee Haney was able to conquer the world and breathe and live at the same time. That's what was important to me.
Do you think that your conduct, also being an example, also, you know, doing ESPN and doing all those things, compromised your physique maybe 5%? If you had been in the gym this whole time, you would have been a better Mr. Olympia physically?
No, I do not believe that, because as I'm sure Brandon will attest, that the one thing that gave us even more drive, even more discipline, was the fact that we had a wife to take care of and we had our kids to look after. And, listen, we got to go after that diaper money. And nobody was going to take that from me. As I feel Brandon feels the same way. No doubt about it. Because when we hit the stage, it was not just us individually. It was our whole family going with us.
Yeah. So, Brandon, you have Lee Haney, you have Jay Cutler, and I think you belong to that category, which is I'm going to do everything I can on stage, but I also need to be a good representation of a Mr. Olympia. One of the coolest things you did was to go to your son's practice and talk about being the best you can be. I remember watching that video on Instagram, and I thought, man, how cool is that? I was inspiring by it. Do you think it's important for a Mr. Olympia to be a representation throughout the calendar year?
It's very important, but it's definitely a balancing act. It's something that you have to learn how to do as a professional, and you have to be wise about your decisions, because if you overreach, of course, it could potentially hurt that final result. So, but we want to be out there. We want to be out there, connecting with the people, being a great ambassador, promoting the sport in the right way, and you just want to make yourself available and be seen amongst those that physically attend the bodybuilding events and shows. Those are the really, really special fans. So you never want to just hide away from those people that really, really spend their money and take their time to go visit these places just to see us as bodybuilders. So we really appreciate those people, and it's just a part of just kind of giving back to the sport and representing the sport well. Because without the fanfare, this sport wouldn't exist. So it's just a part of the responsibility. Anybody seeking to be Mr. Olympia has to realize that no matter how stressful it is, you have to be able to work that out, because it's better for the future of the sport.
Yeah, I agree. Lee, I want to go back to you. Last week, we had Chief Olympia Officer Dan Solomon, and he said social media is a great thing because it helps us propel our image. It helps us propel our business. We benefit tremendously from it. But at the same time, he feels like competitors right now, they get a great deal of satisfaction from social media rather than competing and winning a show, right? In your time, if a guy wasn't Mr. Olympia, he was in Europe doing the Grand Prix because he wanted to win as many shows. He wanted to be in the magazines. And right now, what he said was guys are getting that satisfaction from social media. So they just want to compete one time, win their qualification for the Mr. Olympia, and then everything else comes from social media. Do you see that as a detriment to bodybuilding?
Well, I believe it's somewhat of, it can be I guess, a two-edged sword. During my era, we didn't have the social media. But what we did do, we had connections around the world with the heads of federation in different countries. So I had a chance to travel to over 30 different countries around the world. I have friends all over the world, and I was able to reach out and touch some of the fans, and they reached out and touched me. So the bodybuilding family during that era was a whole lot closer. I feel the magazine was the mouthpiece. And as we went and as we toured, it made for a wonderful time and an incredible experience. That's not happening now because social media does all of the work, but it's not as hands-on or as touchable for fans. And that's the one thing I feel that is missing. But listen, given my had social media during my era, I think we just add the two together. I could have been in a lot more places physically. I mean, social media wise, but physically, I much rather enjoyed my era because my son, my daughters, my wife had a chance to go with me as I toured many of those countries, and I have friendships and relationships with fans that'll last a lifetime.
Yeah, Brandon, going back to that topic, and I completely agree with Lee. when you went to Brazil, you placed 5th at the Mr. Olympia before winning the Mr. Olympia. When you went to Brazil, the Brazilian fans believed it was real. Remember, you came on stage and Rafael Brandão, Horse, all those guys that were prominent young bodybuilders, they said, man, now it's real. You know, bodybuilding is finally in Brazil because I'm here with Brandon Curry, right? And then you go and you do your guest posing and people are like freaking out. It was more effective than a social media post, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Do you think that right now a lot of bodybuilders are getting that social media satisfaction and missing out on really reaching out to the fans and making impact? I know that if I meet a bodybuilder that's been my hero personally, the impact is much bigger than watching a live with him, right?
Right. I agree. I think they are missing out. I think they, in this new era, they don't really recognize the benefit. I'm kind of in between. I was here through the transition from the magazine era to the internet era. So I'm in between. So I got to travel the world a lot and tour with different supplement companies like BSN and SciTech. And they took me all over the world, meeting fans, just
Think we're having some issues with their connection. Lee Haney, you have the best connection. I gotta give you credit.
But thank you. I'm using my phone, which makes it a lot easier than using the laptop or the desktop downstairs.
Yeah. I think we got you back. Can you hear us, Brandon?
Yeah, man, my connection today, I don't know what's going on. I got full bars, but it's not working like it needs to. But yeah, I just think they're missing out. I think it's easy to get wrapped up and sit on your butt, go to a computer, and interact with fans and think that's it. But once you've been overseas and all over the world and experienced different cultures.
Let's see if we can get him back real quick here. Yeah, when Brandon went to Brazil, it was fantastic. The Brazilian fans, especially in North Brazil, they had never had any contact with a bodybuilder like Brandon. And Brandon was fundamental for me and my brother for our expansion in Brazil. So Brandon, go ahead, continue.
Yeah, I just think, like I said, they're missing out. If they haven't experienced the cultures and the different places around the world, and they just think they can just see it all through a screen, you're really just missing out. Because, physical contact, being around people really, really matters. Just feeling the presence, feeling that energy, something that you can't feel through a screen,
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I want to end this live just with a few questions and put you guys in an awkward situation here. That is my job here. Okay, 8-time Mr. Olympia, Lee Haney. Who is winning the 2022 Mr. Olympia?
Well, you know what? You can never say until the day of the show. It all has to do with who is going to peak the very best and at the top of their game. Now, listen, last year, all of us know Ramy did not peak, period. He got better and better as the day went on. I felt it would be Brandon, and he's my choice again for this year. If Brandon come in, slice and dice with overall balance and symmetry that he has, that few people on the planet has, then he'll be victorious. Haney had the best as far as muscle separation, but his overall package of balance and symmetry was not there. So Brandon is my take for this year. Brandon, don't let me down.
Oh, Brandon, just a little added pressure to you. Brandon, we all know who you think is going to win the Mr. Olympia in 2022. Who's finishing second?
That's a good question, man. That's the loaded question. Who's finishing second? Like, oh man, that's harder than who's finishing first. That was an easy question. Man, second place. I mean, that's rough, man. That's rough. Let's say Haney gets in the country. He's gonna be fighting for second. Of course, Ramy's gonna be fighting for second. Being the champ, they got to give him that respect. He's got to at least fight for second, right? If he ain't taking first.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got Nick. Nick's gonna be in the mix, of course. if we look at how it went last year, of course, Rami has the advantage and Hadi have the advantage over possibly William and Nick. And let's see who else is in the mix, man. I've been focused so much on myself, I'm forgetting who's in the show. And Hunter, Hunter. So Hunter's coming back as well. So it's going to be a really close second, but I think it's going to be between Rami and Hadi. So.
Fantastic. Great job. My job is to put you in an awkward situation, Brandon, and I hope I've executed that. I think his connection is helping him in these awkward moments. 8-time Mr. Olympia, Lee Haney, one of the best representations of our sport. Before we finish, I want you to talk about your Atlanta show. You have an NPC show happening in Atlanta, and I want you to talk to me about the Lee Haney Games.
Oh man, the Lee Haney Games is an exciting event. We're now moving into our 8th year. It's a competition that draws athletes from all over the United States, and those who win their classes then go on to represent the NPC Nationals. We've had several pros come from our event, particularly one is Keon Pearson, which he's one of my favorites. I think this kid has one of the most beautiful physiques. Put me in the mind of a Robbie Robinson, a little bit thicker, a little short, sort of reminds me of me just a little. But the Games is incredible. It's located in Atlanta, Georgia. And for people wanting to find out more about the show, they can go to LeeHaneyGames.com. That's LeeHaneyGames.com to register and sign up. So we're looking forward to seeing everybody there. We'll have Bob Chick as the MC. We'll have Digital Muscle. Shawn Ray will be there keeping things together. We also have Freddie. He'll be our DJ. And we're going to be rocking and rolling and having a great time.
Lee Haney, it's www.leehaneygames.com. They can go in there and register right now, correct?
Right now. Hotels, everything is already set up.
Guys, if you're not at the www.leehaneygames.com, you're going to have a miserable life. I need you to go there and register, and you can shake hands with 2 Mr. Olympias, Brandon Curry and Lee Haney. I go to a lot of NPC shows. It's almost impossible to find one Mr. Olympia. To have 2 Mr. Olympias in one event is just madness. www.leehaneygames.com. Brandon, are you going to Kuwait to finish your prep?
Yes. Yeah, that's the plan. So I can't give you the exact time. You can't tell everybody all your plans, but very soon we'll be headed back to Kuwait, to the heat, to just basically bodybuilding, eating and sleeping. You know how it's done. That seems to be the magic formula. So we're gonna go in there, put work, and come back with a unquestionable package for the Olympia stage. That's the plan.
Well, I can tell you, Brandon Curry looks focused. He looks ready. He's going to get the Kuwait chicken, whatever they call it there, anabolic chicken. These guys don't drink water. They all come out dry like the desert, and they have the special mirror, the whole thing, right?
Yep, it's like in a bodybuilding Disney World over there.
Very, very cool. Very cool. I want to thank both of you guys for spending some time at the Olympia TV. We're talking about 2 legends. They've reached the peak of our sport. 8-time Mr. Olympia, Lee Haney, thank you so much. Brandon Curry, Mr. Olympia, thank you so much. We'll see you guys next time. Take care.
All right.